Wow. Thank you. Thank you to Colin and to all the tree people. So I'm going to start off by being ironic about the power of art. Template poem. Here I am at the specific location with its world-infected familiarity and its overlooked unlikely beauty. It is here where, after a brief meditation on an esoteric topic, I will come to a realization at once profound and elementary, something we all know that had never before achieved itself in song. How exposed I am here in these words, translating my insights into language both elaborate and brutal, and how hopeful of you to press on despite the odds, the paltry expense and frequent disappointments. But this isn't about you. You sit down. This is about truth, as our attentions drift to a seemingly unrelated tidbit, the average number of molecules in the width of a human hair, or something funny Bob Dylan once said in Tucson. Off on tangents, we worry together how I will pull off the conceit, but you can see it in your peripheral vision, the end of the poem approaching like the end of a moving walkway at Lester B. Pearson Airport. Your gate is behind you now, but the glide of each well-constructed sentence brings us closer to our anticipated departure. Now the metaphor begins to collapse. Where are we off to? And the model threatens to devolve into parody. You have wasted your time when you could have exercised your logical mind solving Sudoku. Don't worry, it's almost over. Congratulate yourself for reading the poem. Your judgments of its merits are informed by a whole host of criteria that few have access to. The world is full of cretins who don't read poems, but you are not among them. You are vastly superior in many respects. It turns out this poem is about you after all. You are a species no less endangered or precious than the narwhal. The unacknowledged legislators of our world, as everyone knows, are actuaries. But who needs legislation, or the world for that matter, when we can huddle together at the end of the poem, relishing our rarefied pleasures? I actually was on a moving walkway at Lester B. Pearson Airport this morning, and I went past my gate. That's all I have to say about that. Jim Johnstone, everybody. That's strong work. And all you open mic readers, and yeah, you go, because I know it's terrifying, and you get 2 minutes, which is less time than you know. So good for you for doing all that good stuff. I'm a little concerned about the time. I set up a little thing for myself. Do you know that joke? Okay. So I'm going to ruin my time by doing it, but telling the joke. But a Jewish man brings his friend to the synagogue. His friend has never been to a synagogue before, and so he's got a lot of questions. And what's the symbolism of this, and what's the symbolism of this? And the friend is very patient and very interested to help his friend to understand all the things going on at the service. Explains what this is and that is, and then right before the rabbi's sermon, the rabbi takes off his watch and puts it on the podium right in front of him, and he says, is there a symbolic meaning of that? And he says, that has no meaning whatsoever. This is a poem about Bill Matthews, an American poet. William Matthews, a very good American poet. But it's also about the Texas Republican Party. The title is a quotation from their recent party platform, which is, "We oppose the teaching of higher order thinking skills." That's a direct quote. I've been reading Bill Matthews, remembering a visit he made to Indiana, and I played a waltz and my classmates danced. I think he hit on someone, but that may have just been my envy. I love the way his poems inhabit his life, which is something mine are not allowed to do. The way he starts a poem, "What did I think?" or "I've been reading Bill Matthews." He could do that in the early 80s. Now nobody thinks. Even the Texas Republican Party platform agrees with me, though for them it shouldn't, and for me it's can't. Boy, oh, Facebook went into a feeding frenzy about that one. We were all, I think, overreacting to a misinterpretation. Matthews would have liked Facebook, but probably YouTube more because of all the vintage recordings of jazz greats you can find if you can spell their names. Art Tatum tearing through Chopin's waltz in C-sharp minor, holy shit. I'm just saying. Kay just about buried himself in the sound of all that unmaking, though when I talk to him, he seems fine. He takes his kid to the dentist just like a citizen. Me, I'm out here on the metaphorical porch swing looking for other ways to speak, and Bill Matthews is long gone, before YouTube or anything. All right. So I'm trying to read poems. I was here about a month ago for the festival, and I recognize, a few of you are here. I'm trying to read different poems from the book. So thank you for coming again. You came to see Jim, and thank you for staying. So I appreciate that. The book is sort of structured around about 6 longer poems. So I'm going to read for sure 2 of them, and we'll see how my time goes. And I hope they're not too cumbersome. This poem, I'll try not to be cumbersome. This poem is called Check Authenticity Here. It's a series of 9 sort of sonnets, failed sonnets. And there's wax of pop culture references. I've actually never read this poem in public yet. So I'm sort of that. When I was on my way here, I thought I'm going to do this one here. So if there are some that blow by you as far as the pop culture references go, that's okay. The one that sort of recurs was a film that Joaquin Phoenix made a few years ago called "I'm Still Here," where it was a fake documentary, and he pretended to be Joaquin Phoenix, and he was going to become a rap star. And he went on Letterman, and he was very embarrassing on Letterman, and Letterman sort of saw right through it. And he was a really, really bad rapper. And anyway, so the film sort of traces that. That's the only one I'm going to explain. But I'm going to see how this goes. So check authenticity here. 1. The quotes in question were intentional misquotations or improper combinations or did not exist. But my motives were pure, I insist. Jonah Lehrer, roughly. Meanwhile, Joaquin Phoenix gruffly renders his 2012 apology to Letterman for trying to seem like a man trying not to seem deranged. Psychology and PR are dating again. It is the age of homo praetendens. 2. Trying to write a normal poem, I keep writing metacicada instead of magicicada, as if a part of me would prefer a self-referential periodical hemiptera to one that's supernatural. 17 years growing underground, then 4 weeks screeching in a tree. We are all sadly bound to live out our reenactments. Even Ben Lerner's fraudulence is fraudulent, but at least it isn't plagiarized. Mostly. This last line should come as a surprise. Joaquin wasn't really high in February '09, though he did gain the weight. For a year, he pretended to be a total asshole straight out of his own publicity. These are the tasks of art. To fake it until faking is its own kind of making. Try not to be too smart. Lord Black enjoys some spreadable cheese-flavored food while arguing his case for good behavior. It's edible. It is still not known whether he killed himself or went to Mexico. What's the diff? The man that was Weldon Keys is dead if no one sees him and gives a shit. The prep needed to execute a disappearance is overblown. Just stop tweeting. Your language life receding into a server's archive where only Kenny Goldsmith can delightfully mine it for meanings opposite. The problem with inauthenticity is that it's hard to feel for very long. There is then room for virtuosity. If you can play, you can pretend your instrument is broken, but the opposite isn't true. Letterman could seam right through the schmuck, and Colbert can't fake his love for the applause. When Jake Shimabukuro plays Hallelujah on his custom ukulele, all of YouTube rejoices in his imitation of the song. Don't we? There's scant evidence, but plenty of laws. Here's what I learned about Magicicada from the experts at Wikipedia. When it emerges from the earth, the nymph climbs to a decent perch and performs its final molt online. All that lost and lonely time it spent underground gnawing the roots of trees like a teenager without an email address has culminated in this vulnerability, its flesh pale, raw, and digitally undressed. Soon it will harden and join the throng in the chorus tree, trying to entice an original spin on a traditional song. but for now its exposure will have to suffice. These amusements notwithstanding, I refuse to give up trying to be a person searching for understanding. Why do you think I'm lying? To resist the throwing up of the hands, to imagine a world of things that matter, to pass through these shatterings with something intact. And Sandy tears up Cuba and Atlantic City like a pissed-off reality show girlfriend, as if part of the reason for her fury is the previews for next season. Otherwise, why all the drama? To storm bigger than Romney v. Obama. Dear Snooky, we too strive for virtue, and in our seats, while we watch you shake to beats we cannot hear, we yearn to be nearer, to see you more clearly, love you more dearly, the way the aspirants to heaven did in Godspell with major sevens. Vigilant, flexible, may your boy Lorenzo learn to mimic the cartoons and cameos, but resemble himself outside the studio. Finish this. It is not what I expected. Soon it won't even be fun. I am confused and conflicted and worried for my sons. It's hard to invent a personality that doesn't make me feel like an ass. But soon this will pass. My exoskeleton will harden, and I'll resume with the jargon that reflects my complicity. Until then, play me the ukulele version of Bohemian Rhapsody. Are those the real words, or are they just fantasy? Search me. It's a baggy monster, that poem. We had a Philip Larkin reference at dinner. We were quoting from Philip Larkin, and there's a snuck-in Philip Larkin reference as a blessing for Snooky's son. I forget the name of it. It's a prayer for a friend's daughter, and he hopes that she'll be very ordinary. Which is sort of startling and deeply true. All right, this is called The Gladiator. When I was here last time, I was trying to be very funny and charming, and whether it worked or not is a subject for debate. But I realized you can sort of ride the wave of being funny and charming, but that's not the only thing you should occasionally be. This is called The Gladiator. When they conquered my city, I hated them for their strategy. How else could their gang of debtors, ruffians, programmers, and mercenaries lay waste to 1,000 years? We flailed against their formations like ducks against a screen. But now, half starved, half lame from our lost last defense, and still in shock from my shackles, I recognize that I am nothing beside them. There is no secret trick to victory against these monsters. Our faith and factories did nothing to prepare me for their well-fed bodies, any one of which will make quick work of me as soon as the gate lifts. I'd fare better against the lions. Prince that I am, that I was, I am not even fit for their great arenas, but must die here in this half-filled provincial park, training grounds for the up-and-comers of their profession. I can hear the locals outside, bored suburbanites crackling their delicacies, stacking their apple cores and spitting into styrofoam cups. The women flirt, and the men respond. Oh, I was misled by our epics, our anthems, and blogs. I believed that our stories would save us from their magnificent efficiency. How could I not? My people were composing multimedia cantatas while theirs were struggling with agriculture. My fathers understood the tectonic tremors of the earth while theirs merely dug into it, like prairie dogs. They once looked to us for guidance and succor, and now here am I, pissing myself like the boy in the movie while we wait for the signal. In front of me is the smell of what a man must become if he is to survive until sunset. What good are my oils and perfumes, my shampoos and astringents? Look at his deltoid pulsing while he grips his weapon. He needs no elliptical machine, not when there are patsies like me to keep him bloody and in trim. My people are lost, or my people are scattered, my family lost, my lands distributed, my electronics smashed. What is left for me but to choose a death that is noble like Kenobi's or heroic like the Sundance Kid's? Now the commercial interlude has ended, the gate cranks open. I am the dust of the earth, and the sun is a glorious vacuum cleaner. Lord, save me in the archives. Replay the beats of my people in infinite loop. All right, how bad am I? That's 15 minutes already. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. All right, here, I'll read one short one as a cleanser, and then there's a strategy to the banter, actually. Frost used to tell stories in between the poems with the hope that people would concentrate better when he was reading the poems, but I think the end result was that they just concentrated when they were listening to his stories. Yellow house spider clings by web and claw to the shower tiles. Naked, slick with soap, I watch her try to weather the crisis. Everywhere I look, there are signs the world wants to shake us loose. The hot rain streams down. What should I not do? All right, there's no way I can read two long poems. So I actually had a request, which I've never, I think I can count on one hand the number of times I had a request. So, and this is the poem that Colin was talking about earlier. It's called Dwarf, and it's sort of about, well, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. It'll be obvious quite quickly. But it does have an epigraph, and I'm not going to tell the whole damn long story like I did at the festival, but it's a quote from Ron Artest, the basketball player who's now known as Meta World Peace, who said, "I grew up with Pluto as a planet, and now I'm 25, I turn around and Pluto's no longer a planet. I got to find that guy and elbow that guy in the nose." Dwarf. For one day I will not be ironic about the power of art. For one day I will try not to be ironic about the power of art. Tonight the president will use his best rhetoric to make a case for more blood, more debt. I will sit in my love seat and wait for insight. I will detect this insight by way of an inner ear organ that believes it knows insight when it hears it. My inner ear likes the president's rhetoric. More effort, more death. Sometimes it sounds like insight. At other times it sounds like a man's voice in search of insight. For me, for my inner ear, the sound of this searching is as close to insight as is usually available. In other news, Pluto has been demoted to a dwarf planet by the IAU's Working Group on the Definition of a Planet. It has something to do with lopsidedness and something to do with lack of influence. Bodies that dominate their neighborhoods sweep up asteroids, comets, and other debris, clearing a path along their orbits. By contrast, Pluto's orbit is somewhat untidy. And so the children weep because on their cartoon maps of the solar system, Pluto, the 9th planet, has been replaced with an unhappy face. They write pleas to their congressman who can do nothing. But today I have promised to stand by the claims of art, to believe in things that, while as far from the tables of power as Plato is from Poughkeepsie, to believe that they may have, that they may, fire and desperation and hunger and belief, how to account for them, how to measure their significations. What can the cockeyed orbit of Pluto teach us about our earthly sufferings? Chen Li wrote, "Traveling in the family of poetry is the most substantial and warmest link on the lonesome journey in the universe. If Mr. Li wants to learn about loneliness, he should go to Pluto, whose orbit extends to 7.4 billion kilometers from the sun, and where there is no poetry, though plenty is hurled hopefully up on its behalf. It is a truism that, like a child, art has no inherent use, and is often a draw on our resources. As my grandfather once wrote, 'Why do men write poems? Why do men live?' In those days, men meant everyone, but recently the masculine general has been declared a dwarf pronoun by the IAU's Working Group on the Definition of Pronouns. It will be a long winter on Pluto, 100 years roughly. Here it is the season of fallen fledglings. They litter the sidewalks of this bulbous city, some attracting flies, some cheeping stupidly, asking for help from parents who understand the truth and have begun their morning rituals. Sometimes storekeepers scoop the birds up into shoeboxes and try to save them. It's hard not to believe that Pluto would be insulted by its recent reclassification as a dwarf. which puts it on par with Eris, the goddess of discord. Discord is only halfway to hell, but it's also bigger. Meanwhile, art has been declared a dwarf pursuit by the IAU's working group on the definition of pursuits. No, I have promised. We are moon makers. We take balls of ice and blow on them until they seem to hover and spin. Sometimes they achieve an untidy presence that the president may refer to when he helplessly casts about more debt, more death, looking for a way to explain. Pluto has 3 known moons: Hydra, a monster; Charon, the ferryman to oblivion; and Nyx, his mother, who is oblivion. Even oblivion has an orbit. Even oblivion bends the light. Thank you very much.